we checked her into the hospital, and she remained there for the next 5 nights before, sadly, her organs started to fail, and we had to make the heart-wrenching decision to put her down. Safe to say this was the saddest, most difficult week of our life. We'd wait so long to get a dog, and then to lose it a week later was just so heart-wrenching. There's no other place you could have picked up parvovirus except for at this SPCA of Western Quebec. Never once asked how Avery was doing, no sympathy at all.
Hello, and welcome to Puppy Scammers. This is episode 8, The Questionable. In this episode, you will hear from Tegan and Sean, a young couple that adopted their puppy from the SPCA of Western Quebec. Within hours, it was violently ill, and within a week, it would be dead. Let that sink in for a second. They adopted a puppy infected with the parvovirus from the SPCA of Western Quebec, and within a week, they were thousands of dollars in debt, and their dog was no longer alive. From that litter, 4 of the 5 puppies were confirmed adopted, 3 of which had confirmed cases of the parvovirus. 2 have since died. At this time, the status of the other 2 puppies cannot be confirmed. The parvovirus is an extremely contagious virus, and it causes an infectious gastrointestinal illness in puppies. Many veterinarians refer to the parvovirus as the puppy killer. SPCA stands for Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. When I hear that acronym, I think noble, honest, and caring. SPCAs are non-profit organizations that can be found all over the world. SPCA organizations operate completely independently of each other and take on a whole host of responsibilities, some of which include prevention of cruelty to animals, rehabilitation of animals, and rehoming of animals. Caring for the animals should be the first and foremost priority when operating an SPCA, or any shelter for that matter. Recently brought to my attention were an abundance of awful stories out of the SPCA of Western Quebec. But before I get to the first story, I have to give you some background on this shelter. We'll be posting this podcast on our Facebook page, so please check it out. We will be including some of this information. The SPCA of Western Quebec has been involved in lawsuits dating all the way back to 2006. They lost their charity status in 2011, and it was later reinstated in 2018. They failed to pay their licensing fee in September of 2020 to operate the shelter and were fined $5,000. What you're about to hear may be traumatic for some. Listener discretion is advised. This is Avery's story. Let's do this.
We've been together about eight years now, I guess, but most of that's been like long distance, and we've wanted a dog for a long time. Like, we both had dogs growing up. Our parents have dogs. Tegan's dog obsessed. If she had her way, we'd probably have 12 dogs. But,
definitely.
I have to rein that in a little bit.
We've been just waiting for our moment, really, to get a dog.
Yeah, and it took a pandemic to get us finally back into the same city, like permanently. So we're so excited, we finally we bought our first house together, had a backyard, we're finally in a position where we could get a dog. So I think we moved into a new place beginning of December, and pretty much right away we started looking at rescues. We wanted to adopt a dog just because there's enough homeless dogs out there. We wanted to do our part. Tegan's parents also had just adopted a dog from Mexico through a local rescue, and it worked out super well for them. It was a great dog, so that was really encouraging and made us want to adopt even more. But turns out it's hard to adopt.
So hard.
We probably put in 20 applications before we even got a call back. So one of the organizations where we applied was the SPCA of Western Quebec. And should say for your readers, there's 2 SPCAs in the Gatineau region. One of them is the SPCA of Western Quebec, and the other one is the Outaouais SPCA. And 2 very different organizations. They're not affiliated. By all accounts, the Outaouais SPCA is, very much legit. They actually are funded by the city of Gatineau, so they get their funding through pet licenses, from what I understand, in the city. And they have the contract for investigating cases of animal cruelty, neglect, and also for taking in strays. The other SPCA, the West SPCA of Western Quebec, again, not affiliated whatsoever. I spoke with a representative from the Outaouais SPCA, and people are always getting the two confused, and he's constantly fielding calls of people, with complaints about the other SPCA. So just want to make sure no one gets confused. But anyways, backing up, we submitted, I think, 2 applications for dogs at the SPCA of Western Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
We got a call on Wednesday, so it was January 6th, saying, unfortunately, we didn't get the dog we had applied for, but they had some puppies available. Had a litter of 5 puppies that weren't posted online, and they asked if we could come that day to meet the puppies. So we were super excited, obviously, like it's a puppy. We've been looking for rescues for a while, and this is the first time we've ever come across a puppy available for adoption.
It was like winning the lottery, because like nobody has any dogs available, and then on top of that, it's a puppy. And it was just like, oh my gosh, this is such a perfect timing. Like, let's go. We have to go.
We had discussed maybe briefly getting a puppy, but weren't like, just because we didn't think it would happen. We honestly weren't really prepared to bring a puppy into our house, but we ended up going over there at 2 p.m. on January 6th to meet the puppies. The employee said they had 2 puppies left that we could choose from, but they had kind of one that they would like us to show us, one that they thought we would like, and it was a female, and that was perfect. We were looking for a female. So they brought the female dog out, Avery, and just immediately, fell in love.
Yeah.
So cute and cuddly, and she kind of like ran around the lobby of this building we were in and tried to eat like some rocks off the floor.
Yeah.
And like when we picked her up, she was just like so cuddly and like relaxed, which was great, because it's kind of what we were looking for in a dog.
The person there, the employee, even noted that like how relaxed she was in Sean's arms, because she wasn't that relaxed in other people's arms, I guess. And so she's like, wow, like she really likes you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was just encouraging or what, but
of course, now looking back, we realized that maybe that was the first sign of her being ill, the fact that she was kind of lethargic and just wanted to be held and cuddled. We were told that she was a litter from 5 puppies, that she was born at the shelter, and the mother was found pregnant on a reserve up in Maniwaki, about an hour and a half north of the city. They'd been born in the shelter, and that the mother of this employee had been fostering the puppies. Avery was the runt of the litter. She seemed, like I said, pretty relaxed. Apparently, the other siblings were much larger than her, and they kind of often like trampled over her as they were playing. So that was kind of it. We were told we could walk away with the dog right then and there. Again, we were kind of surprised that they would let us take the puppy. Again, another kind of red flag, but in the moment, like, you got this puppy, you just want to take it home.
Yeah.
So we signed the paperwork, we paid our adoption fee, and we headed home. They gave us a little bag of food, some toys. And yeah, we were definitely not expecting to go home that same day. We had just moved in a couple weeks ago. The place was not puppy proof.
And we told them that we're like, we just moved in, like our place is not puppy proof. Like we could come back in a few days or something. Like and it was just like, well, like the puppy's here now, so gotta take the puppy. So we did, and we were like, and they were very encouraging that we'll figure it out, and we're like, yeah, we'll figure it out. Like, it's fine.
We got home and we put in a curbside pickup order at a Pet Valley near us for some bowls, a bed, some toys and stuff like that, because we were, again, completely unprepared. When we got her home, though, she seemed kind of like a normal puppy. She wanted to explore and sniff everything. She played with her toys, not a lot, only for like a few minutes at a time, and then she just kind of wanted to, to lay down and curl up on our living room rug. That evening, she wouldn't really touch any of her food. We put out maybe like a quarter cup of food in her bowl, and we couldn't get her to eat anything. I think she drank a little bit of water. And before bed, we managed to get her to eat, I think, maybe half the food that we put out. So like an eighth of a cup of food. We just kind of chalked it up to the stress of being in a new environment, transition period, and we just decided to put her to bed.
Mm-hmm. And like we were so unprepared, like just to paint a picture here, her bed, because Pet Valley didn't have one or whatever at the time.
Yeah.
We because we were just moved in, we had a bunch of cardboard boxes. We put a cardboard box on the side and filled it with a bunch of towels and blankets and like kind of made a pseudo crate for her, like a towel over one side to make her feel cozy and in a den. And so like we really weren't prepared, but we were doing the best we could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we kind of coaxed her into bed, and she got cozy and went to sleep, and we were kind of like, yeah, success. This is great.
Yeah.
We kind of slept that night with one eye open. Anytime she would make a noise or whatever, we were looking out for accidents or anything like that. And then shortly before midnight, that first night, she had an accident, diarrhea on our bedroom floor, and it just smelled absolutely revolting. It was disgusting. We later learned that is a sign of parvovirus in puppies. So we got, we just figured, again, accidents happen. It's a puppy. We were kind of expecting this to happen, certainly on the first night. We got it cleaned up, aired out our bedroom, managed to get back to bed. But again, didn't really sleep that great now with the smell. Luckily, Avery slept for the rest of the night, which was great.
Yeah, it was.
In the morning, she was really, really lethargic. She didn't want to get out of her bed. I managed to coax her out with a couple of small treats, which she did eat, and that was kind of the first thing she had eaten for us. But I had to carry her outside for her to go pee. And then after that, she spent the morning, we're both working from home. She spent the morning kind of rotating between our laps, just wanted to be held and cuddled, didn't have any energy at all.
If we put her down, she would just like run to the other person to be cuddled. She would like whine a little bit.
Yeah, like anytime we would move her between our laps, she would kind of whine a little bit. Mm-hmm. She was clearly uncomfortable, didn't really like to be moved. And then by lunchtime, she still hadn't eaten anything besides, those couple of treats in the morning. So we tried feeding her some kibble, some more treats. We, went on the internet and Googled what to feed, a puppy who won't eat. We tried plain yogurt and white rice, two things that were, recommended, and she wouldn't touch anything, not even water. Again, we thought maybe it was just stress, anxiety, being in a new environment.
We've never owned a puppy either, we should say. Like, we have no idea, like, all the dogs we both had, like, growing up, they were adults, right? So I don't know what a puppy's like. Maybe, I don't know how sensitive they are to a new environment. I don't know how much they eat. Like, we were Googling how much to eat, and so that's how we figured it out. But, like...
Yeah, and like, we talked to my parents, too, who have a puppy who's about a year old now, and they kind of said, they had the similar thing when the dog first came home. It was nervous and, wouldn't eat much. So at first we didn't really think of any, weren't overly concerned. But then about an hour or two later, she vomited twice, and then we started to get really concerned. So we called the shelter. We explained everything that was going on. She was interested in food. She had diarrhea. Now she vomited twice. Again, they told us it was probably just an adjustment period. It was probably fine, and to call her vet if we wanted to. We had done some more like Googling, and like the color of the vomit, from what we were reading, indicated that it was probably bile from her intestines. So like everything was kind of backing up. She wasn't eating anything, so she must have been really, really nauseous. So we called her vet right away, and we left a message. We got a call back shortly after that and managed to get an appointment for that night at 6 p.m. The vet seemed really concerned, though, and we actually ended up getting bumped up to 4:30, which I think was about an hour from when we called to make the appointment. Mm-hmm. So we took the Avery into to be examined. They did a parvovirus test, which unfortunately came back positive. And we were just devastated. Yeah. We had never heard of this disease before, and the vet handed us this pamphlet of, like everything about it. And we just sat there in the vet crying, wondering like, what the heck do we do?
Yeah, like we haven't even owned the dog for like just over 24 hours. And now we're told our dog has a chance of dying. And it was just like, what do we do? How?
Yeah. And, she explained to us that how serious this is, and it requires like 24-hour care. and that it would be anywhere, upwards of $5,000 or more, right, to treat. And there's no guarantee that she's going to pull through. So clearly, like she needed hospitalization. There was absolutely no way we could take care of her at home. So we just decided to check her into the hospital that night and regroup in the morning to figure things out. At this point, the shelter was closed, so we couldn't call them to get advice on what to do. Our vet tried to call them too, and she left them a message. She was quite upset, actually. Told them, that they're infected with parvo. Like, you guys got to close down. You got to clean everything. This is a big deal. And she explained, that they would have to sanitize everything, otherwise they'd risk other dogs getting sick. So this is when we started to get concerned about the other puppies, because we knew there were 4 others in this litter. But for the time being, we're just focused on giving Avery a fighting chance. So we checked her into the hospital, and she remained there for the next 5 nights before, sadly, her organs started to fail, and we had to make the heart-wrenching decision to put her down. Safe to say this was the saddest, most difficult week of our life. We'd wait so long to get a dog, and then to lose it a week later was just so heart-wrenching. And
every day it was like a god-like decision, because it was $1,000 a night in the hospital. And so it was like, every day it was like, we haven't seen a sign. Like, is she turning upwards? Is she turning downwards? Like, do we give her another day? And so we had this great GoFundMe account, and that really helped us be able to push on and to be able to afford another day at a time. We were really taking it hour by hour, day by day, to see what we could do.
And with parvovirus, you just kind of need to give them time. It's a horrible illness. There's nothing the vets can really do to help kill the virus once they're infected with it. It's just supportive care. They treat the symptoms, and they do everything they can to support the dog while they try and fight it off. So we were just kind of kept getting told no change day after day, no change, no change for the better, no change for the worse. So we were cautiously optimistic at first. And we were told at some point it's going to take a turn one way or the other. And unfortunately, that night it was for the worst. I know, having to make the decision to put down any dog is heart-wrenching, but to put down a puppy, it was particularly difficult. It's one of the saddest things that we've ever had to do. And it's crazy, because Avery was in our lives barely a week, and only in our house for a day, but you fall in love with them so quickly. And everyone she interacted with, seemed to steal their hearts. It was really kind of heartwarming. All the vets and the techs at the hospital were really rooting for her, and they did a fantastic job.
They really did.
At giving her the best care that they could.
Even when we called and the receptionist on the phone was like, "Oh, little Avery, that sweet little girl, yeah, here, and passed us on to the next person." She, that last week, she had a lot of caring people in her life, which really warms our heart, and everybody else who helped supported her as well. We're just, we're happy that we were able to do everything we could to give her a fighting chance, and we feel so lucky to be surrounded by such great friends and family, who supported us and sent us all their best wishes, and even pitched in money to the GoFundMe, which helped us get, an extra 3 nights in hospital, which is just amazing. But at the end of the day, we were still left with a couple thousand in vet bills, but at least we were able to give her the fighting chance that she deserved. So throughout all of this, we contacted the shelter the next day and explained to them what was going on. They had already had a message the night before from our vet. Yeah, this was the day after she got diagnosed with parvo. That's right. So we managed to connect with them, I think, around noon. And frankly, we were kind of surprised we didn't get a call from them after presumably listening to the message from the vet in the morning when they opened. We managed to give them a call and explain everything that was going on, and they flat out refused
take any responsibility or to help us out at all with any of our veterinary bills. At first, they even refused to refund us our adoption fee. They said that Avery was perfectly healthy when she was adopted out. Any injuries or illnesses after the fact were our responsibility. She actually compared it to a dog that broke its leg a month after being adopted out. Like, if our dog broke its leg a month later, would we expect them to cover those vet costs? And just absurd. Clearly, this is a very, very different situation. She was born at the shelter. She was in our house 24 hours. There's no other place she could have picked up parvovirus except for at this SPCA of Western Quebec. And looking back, the day we picked her up, she was already, lethargic. So we believe that, they should at least have known that something was up. Because according to the documentation that we got from their vet who examined Avery on December 23rd, when she got her first round of vaccinations, she weighed 11.3 pounds then. And then on January 7th, when our vet examined her when doing the parvo test, she weighed 11.3 pounds. So
11.1.
Sorry, 11.1. Yeah, that's right. She went from 11.3 to 11.1. So over the course of those 2 weeks, she's a puppy, a lab puppy. She should have been doing a lot of growing. And instead, she actually lost weight. So we think that she likely wasn't eating the few days before being adopted out, even in the shelter. Anyways, after that conversation with the shelter, we really didn't trust that they were taking this seriously. And I should say too, in that initial call, never once did they ask how Avery was doing.
No.
It was all about very defensive, deflecting, never once asked how Avery was doing, no sympathy at all.
Just constantly on the defensive and argumentative, even though we never took it there, it was just right in the face. How could you call us and ask us for your adoption feedback? How incredibly rude.
Yeah. So we started to post on social media to see if we could find the other puppies in the litter because we were really concerned about them. We wanted to make sure that, almost guaranteed their puppies have parvo too, and could take a turn for the worse at any time. Strangely enough, it was initially through a friend of a friend that we managed to connect with the people who adopted the last puppy, so the one immediately after us. It was a male named Midnight. We got connected with his owners, and sadly, Midnight had parvovirus too, as well as a parasite. I can't remember which one. Do you remember, Tegan?
Concordia? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
Coccidia?
Coccidia, that's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So Midnight was being treated at home by his mom, who was a nurse, but unfortunately he passed away too from parvo a day after Avery on January 14th. Also through Facebook this time, we managed to connect with the owners of a second puppy from the litter named Diesel. Diesel was the first one adopted out from what we have now gathered. Diesel's healthy, luckily, not showing any signs of parvo, but he did have another parasite and needed to be dewormed.
Yeah, he had roundworm and coccidia.
Right.
What is that one?
Yeah, you got it, coccidia. Yeah.
Roundworm and coccidia.
So he's looking healthy. His owners expect him to make a full recovery. Luckily,
That's still pretty unhealthy, though.
Still, exactly. Still not in a state to be adopted out at all.
No.
So, like I said, they were the first ones to adopt. So they actually met all of the puppies on January 2nd before going back to pick up Diesel on the 4th. So that's kind of how we know most of the details of this litter and the names of the other puppies. And so through another kind of anonymous Facebook connection, they want to remain anonymous. We got word of another lab mix puppy named Opal, which was also in the hospital for parvovirus. And so Opal's owners haven't reached out to us directly, so this is kind of all secondhand. We haven't been able to confirm, but the name Opal and the color, I think it was beige, matches Diesel's owners, what they saw. So from what we have gathered, 3 out of 5 puppies have parvovirus. We haven't had any updates on Opal, so we don't know if she made it or not. And we haven't been able to locate the 5th puppy. We think there's a chance the 5th puppy was never adopted out because Diesel's owners were told that the there was one puppy that they did not meet, and that's because it had a skin condition. So we don't think it was ever adopted out. Simply like the fact that 2 out of 4 puppies from the same litter died of parvo and a third diagnosed just demonstrates like there's some serious issues with cleanliness and neglect in this shelter. I spoke with the representative from the Outaouais SPCA, I think like the first week when this was all going on, just to get some advice on what we can do. And he mentioned the last time they had parvovirus in their shelter was eight years ago. And they closed for 2 weeks and they sanitized everything. He said it was an absolute nightmare. So this is not a common thing to happen in shelters. So the fact that this litter was just so unhealthy, just, yeah, breaks our hearts. And
they were adopting this entire time too.
That's right.
Like we could see on their Facebook feed, they always take a picture of the family and post on Facebook, their adopted dogs. And we could see this entire time while we were dealing with parvo, dogs were just constantly being adopted out. Where really they should, if they were taking it seriously, they would have done the correct sanitary measures and stopped progress, halted what they were doing, and really focused in on that. And when we called them out for it, they denied everything, of course.
And they claim that they did, follow all the protocol, they cleaned everything. But like Tegan said, they were adopting dogs the whole week that this was going on. So needless to say, like we have our doubts.
And at the same time too, we were hearing through our social media posts all these other people that this has happened to from this shelter, right? Like that we were learning that we were not the edge case scenario, that this happens from the shelter. Like people adopt puppies, they get parvo, they die. Like it's not an unknown thing.
We're not the only ones, and all these people were coming forward, like telling us stories going back years.
Mm-hmm.
It was just insane. And yeah, we thought we were doing the right thing too by adopting from an SPCA, especially an organization like the SPCA. We didn't do a ton of research, because with a name like SPCA, you kind of assume that to carry some weight, be legit, and be trustworthy. But unfortunately, we've learned after the fact that really means nothing. Anyone can call themselves an SPCA. It's just a name. It's not regulated in any way. There's no overarching regulatory body or anything like that in Canada. Yeah. So this place, like, they have kind of a facade. They look like a real shelter, that they really care for animals. They post lots of pictures of happy stories of dogs getting adopted, and I'm sure they do. I'm sure they adopt out plenty of dogs every year without issue. But if you dig a bit deeper and look into some of the Google reviews, there's tons of stories of people having issues with this shelter. Like at this point, I think we've gathered about 20 stories through looking at Google reviews and our own social media posts, about 20 different people having a variety of different issues, like people adopting dogs with behavioral issues and then getting hassled, that like not being able to like return the dog when there's behavioral issues that weren't disclosed, and then seeing it posted for adoption a few days later. It's crazy. I did my own after the fact. I did some of my own research to try and like figure out what's going on at this shelter, and a few things stood out for me. I discovered that they lost their status as a registered charity in 2011, and they didn't re-register until 2018. This is all according to public documentation available on the CRA website. I haven't been able to confirm why they lost their status, but was able to confirm that their charitable number and donation button did disappear from their website in 2011, and it didn't reappear until 2018. Over the years, they've also been involved in a number of court cases, and these are all public domain. You can find them on the net if you dig deep enough. One in particular that stood out for me was from 2006, and it dealt with a family who had lost their 2 dogs. They were puppies, about a year old, 2 purebred Great Pyrenean Mountain dogs. They were found and turned into the SPCA of Western Quebec as strays. And right away, that should have raised some red flags. Like, how often do two puppies that are clearly siblings get turned in? Like, there's no way they're strays, right? They're purebred, very expensive puppies. And the SPCA of Western Quebec adopted them out 3 days later. How can you claim to have made a reasonable effort to find the owners if after 3 days you're adopting them out? And the craziest part is, under municipal regulations, strays aren't even supposed to be brought to that SPCA. It's the other SPCA, the Outaouais SPCA, who has that responsibility. And so this poor family was suing the SPCA of Western Quebec, trying to learn who had adopted their dogs so that they could get them back. And the shelter just was not complying. They failed to respond to a subpoena and to appear in court. And the judge just issued a scathing ruling chastising them for even accepting the dogs in the first place. And to this day, the shelter still lists stray dogs as one of the services they provide on its website. So I'm sure this story has probably been repeated. It's from 2006, again, and apparently nothing's changed. A more recent court case from 2018 involved a dog that was adopted it with a sore foot. And the owners commented on this when they were adopting the dog, and the shelter employee just kind of dismissed it as having a lame paw. So the owners took the dog home and ended up taking it to a vet who did an X-ray and discovered that it had an injury that would cost $3,000 to fix. So they were taking the SPCA to court to cover some of those bills. So all that to say, all these stories we've heard in these court cases, they start to show a pattern of animal neglect over many years. It's been going on forever, and the shelter really seems to operate more like a business. They just want to adopt out dogs as quickly as they can, and to bring in those adoption fees. And they don't seem to do full evaluations of the dog's health or anything before they adopt them out.
Mm-hmm. We've even spoken with an ex-employee who said, on their website, how they do cat testing and child testing. They don't do any of those on any of their animals. They really don't understand the behavior. Dogs are found in their cages often with just feces left there. Most dogs don't want to leave their feces in their same cage, right? There's a constant sign of neglect. And we really don't want to say don't go out and adopt, because clearly the adoption's better. It's just surprising the amount of research that needs to go into something. Even a trusted name. So
we just want people to know that they need to really, even if it's an organization like an SPCA, they really need to do their research and make sure they know exactly what they're adopting, that the dog's had all of its tests, and to see where the dogs live, because I wish we had done that. Mm-hmm. If we had asked to go in the back, if they would have even let us, I'm sure we probably would have been appalled and we would have walked away.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like psychological warfare. You're handed this puppy and you just wanna go home with it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I was also told by an ex-employee there that the main room, all the dogs are in crates. They're not even in cages. They're all just in small little crates in one giant open room. So the dogs aren't, so they're literally on top of each other. So there's no, and now I don't know if this is factual. This is just what I was told. So I can't verify this, but based on her working there, she said that they were all in little crates, all just kind of side by side, willy-nilly, with no separation from the dogs coming from other areas, right? So that's how you can end up with these cases of parvo, because these dogs are all on top of each other. Now, I just want to go back real quick. You talked about these puppies being fostered somewhere. Do you know where that was?
We were just told that they were fostered by the mother of one of the employees. And when we called back, we went through a bit of a hassle to get our adoption fee back, but we ended up getting our money back. She again commented, finally kind of showing a little bit of sympathy, how sorry she was, and saying that, these puppies were really a part of our lives, and that it was her mother who had fostered them.
When you're saying she, sorry to interrupt you, who is she? Who are you speaking with?
It was one of the employees at the shelter.
Okay. It was the manager at the shelter.
The manager,
That's who we've been dealing with the entire time.
And she was reasonable or no?
At first, very unreasonable. Our initial call was very hostile. We I think it was the second time I called back, they were a little bit more reasonable. I explained, Avery was in the hospital. We were just really looking for our refund back, our adoption fee refunded at this point, so we could use it on another night in the hospital. And at that point, she said, I'll speak to the higher ups, air quotes. We don't really know what that means or who she talked to. And then day after that, called back again, and they finally agreed to give us our money back, but they wanted proof of the parvo diagnosis, which we got, so we emailed that over. And then they said that wasn't enough. They wanted the full hospital records, which again we obtained from the hospital and we emailed. And then finally at that point then they
said that also wasn't enough, and they wanted us to return our originally signed contract that they have given us as proof of ownership of this dog. And they said not until you drive over here and drop off your contract will we refund you. And that's when we said absolutely not, because that's our only proof that we have had Avery in our care, and you should also have a contract on your own file. So there's no reason for us to return this.
Mm-hmm. Right. Trying to cover their tracks, it sounds like, and rather than trying to help you guys and get you through this issue. So the foster, do you know how long the puppies were in foster care for?
We know they were born on October. Do you know the date?
I think October 16th they were born. That's really all we know. The story we were told again is that they were found on a reserve in Maniwaki. I do remember her saying they were born in the shelter and then fostered by her mother.
Yeah, so the mom dog was found in Maniwaki. Yeah. And was brought into this employee's mom's foster care, and they had them in in their house. Yeah.
Okay, so regardless to whether they got it at the shelter, if it was passed down from the mom dog, or if they somehow miraculously got it from this foster home, they would all have ended up in the shelter at some point, meaning Parvo is in that shelter. 100%. They can't deny that. You can't deny that. Especially when if this is not an isolated incident, there's multiple dogs sick with Parvo. Come on, who are you kidding?
Exactly.
There's obviously something very wrong. This, it's not normal.
And when we called back, after we got our refunded, we started pushing for a couple more questions to see what they would share. And we asked, because they didn't know that we had contacted other puppies from this litter. And we asked, how are the other puppies? Parvo's very contagious. Have you heard anything? And she just said, oh yeah, all the other puppies are fine. One had a false positive test for a parasite, but it's absolutely fine. It was just your dog. Meanwhile, of course, we've been talking with all the owners and we know the entire backstory. And when they've even contacted the shelter, they denied everything until they mentioned Avery's name. And then they would go, oh, yeah. and then they would play along a little. But it was the denial and lack of responsibility is what really gets to me.
And they also said they had contacted all the other puppies that. The morning after we checked Avery into the hospital, or I should say the afternoon, we called back and asked if they had contacted all the other puppies, and they said yes. But we later learned, I think it was a day or two later when we connected with the first owner, that they never got a call. It was they had the call and tell them about Avery. Mm-hmm. And it was only at that point that did they kind of fess up and say what was going on.
And the puppy, the owners of Diesel, they didn't even know about Parvo. They had no idea their dog had Parvo. It was through our Facebook post that they found out that their dog could have Parvo. Mm-hmm. So zero lack of responsibility.
Yeah, I think that's the main problem here. You would think even just pretend to be sympathetic. You know what I mean? So to just have no care and just brush you guys off and then blatantly lie about it, and that's the worst part about this. Why not say we are incredibly sorry, accidents happen, we don't know if Parvo's going to be in our facility, but do the work, protect your other animals, do your work, do your due diligence, and protect the people that you're serving the public, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just maddening.
And so where are you guys at this point, as far as the SPCA goes? Have you guys been talking to them at all? Have you heard anything else about it? I mean, I know you guys are doing a lot of research because there's a lot of info that you've been sharing as far as like lawsuits and court cases that they've dealt with. And I know the place burned down. Was it 2018 or something? One of their buildings burned down.
Yeah, and I think it's not a good excuse, but that's probably partly why the conditions in this kind of quote unquote temporary shelter, it was only supposed to be temporary.
Yeah,
it's probably why they're all in crates, right? Because it's not a suitable facility to be housing dogs. It's just like it's basically a house.
It is. It seems like almost like I could see that lot having a gas station on it at some point, and then you remove the gas pumps, and it was just like the like convenience store area. Like that's in my mind kind of what it pictures, and that's like the size of it.
And you know what? I gotta say this too. Like, I genuinely hope that they do love animals and that this was an accident that they're just trying to downplay rather than brush it off. I mean, it's really hard for me to justify that based on all the evidence, but like, you would have to think like, that they want to do good, I would hope. But I'm trying to find every ounce of that and I just can't see it.
We wanted to give them like the benefit of the doubt at first too, like at first we were naive. We thought, like they're an SPCA, they're a reasonable organization. We'll call them, we'll explain what happened. They'll be able to help us out. Like mistakes happen. Like this is out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm. Even if they couldn't cover our vet fees and we're like responsible and we're just like upfront and like super sympathetic and we're like, sorry, like we are a shelter, we just can't cover these vet fees. We're reasonable enough people to understand that.
Yeah.
But that initial phone call, it went the complete opposite way. And we were just left speechless.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only option they gave us was to return the puppy, was to return Avery. And that's like, it's not an option. Like they already have parvovirus in their shelter. Clearly they're not going to be able to give her the level of care that she needs. And let's be realistic. Like a lot of these places run on shoestring budgets. Like if we had returned her, they wouldn't have the resources to spend $6,000 on vet to try to save her. So if we had returned her, we knew that she would probably have just been euthanized. So that's part of the problem with these places because the funding isn't there, right? So the one SPCA Niagara, where we adopted our puppy from, whenever they bring in animals from outside of like anywhere really, so like for instance, Nora, our puppy, came in with I think it was like 5 or 6 other puppies. They keep them there for 2 weeks straight, and they monitor them and make sure, because they can't run tests on every dog that comes through there. It's just not feasible for them. They wouldn't be in business otherwise. So what they do is they monitor them for 2 weeks. They watch them, make sure they have no symptoms and all that stuff. And then they inoculate them and do the things that they can do. And then once they feel that the dogs are, healthy, they're growing, their fur looks good, then they start adopting them out. But I've also heard stories of these people that they brought in a dog and the next day flipped it. It's almost like it's like a revolving door so that they can make money. That's what it sounds like anyways. I don't know if that's a fact, but all the evidence points to they just don't care about the animal. They just want to make money, and at whatever cost. So it sounds like they're experts at brushing people off, and when things like this arise, they just pass the buck, and then they just let it go away. Then people would move on, get another dog, and then they just don't bother with that place again. Yeah,
that's what we think so as well. Like even the adoption fees are like just a bit higher than everywhere else. Like any other rescue, any other SPCA. Like we got a puppy, it was $820. Like most places it's around, I would say $700, $600 for a puppy.
Right.
Like usually puppies are a little bit more expensive. They're just like the extra little level higher. And that's the same for adult dogs as well.
And we can't prove this, but from our perspective, it's hard not to feel like a sick puppy was kind of dumped on us. A couple of hapless first-time dog owners, they kind of had a oh crap moment. These puppies are sick. We just need to get rid of them, because we got a call that morning to pick it up that afternoon. It was very, very quick kind of turnaround.
And midnight, one of the other puppies from this litter had diarrhea on its way home from the shelter.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So
so I imagine that. Sorry, go ahead.
To get the dog. They also got the call that same morning to adopt the dog that afternoon. So
Yeah, so I imagine that as soon as the dogs left the shelter into the open air, they didn't magically get parvo and start crapping in the car on the way home, right? So you would see symptoms, especially if it was passed from the mom, which you don't know. You would see symptoms as soon as they're born. They'll be getting sick right away. I mean, they're already sick, so it's only a matter of just time before you notice, okay, there's something wrong with these dogs. That's what I'm curious about. The foster parent, like mom, I wish we could talk to that person and find out when they had the dogs there, how were they behaving? What were their attitudes? Like, were they sick? Were they?
Well, so when we first kind of called back, or in one of our conversations anyways with the shelter, we explained how lethargic she was. And we were told that was kind of her personality, right? She said like she's just
being
kind
sick?
of a chill puppy. Yeah, exactly.
That's what we said.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I think I would love to speak to somebody from that shelter, and I think I'm certainly going to pursue that after this episode. I'll gladly give them a chance to talk to me, and anybody from the shelter that wants to talk and come on this podcast, they are more than welcome to, and they can sort of justify what they've been doing there. And hi, that's Nora. She is a Manitoba mutt. For anybody that obviously you can't see her, but she came from the Niagara SPCA as well, and so they have on episode 7 of the podcast, I interviewed the head of the SPCA and a lady Katie Powell, I believe is her name. She runs Save a Dog Network Canada, and she's from that area, so they find strays and puppies and they send them over to Ontario and they adopt them out. And so I don't know if you guys have got another dog yet. Have you looked into getting another dog? You sort of waiting, and what's your plan?
Yeah,
that's a whole conversation in itself.
We feel like we're kind of like trapped at the moment because we can't bring another puppy into our home. Like, despite our best bleaching efforts, there's still parvovirus here. So we would never be comfortable bringing another puppy, for like another year. At least another year, we wouldn't feel comfortable. It lives on surfaces for just an absurd amount of time.
Right.
So yeah, we're debating what to do next. We still really want to adopt a dog. We think that's the right thing to do. So we're going to keep looking for adult rescues, and we're also debating trying to get on some wait lists for some like reputable breeders, just because
right.
We can't deal with another sick dog emotionally or financially. So if we are able to adopt a dog, we're going to be doing a lot of homework and research into the organization and making sure it's a healthy, happy dog.
And it's not easy to get a dog right now either. Like we put like 20 applications out for rescues for dogs, and like I've been still filling out like applications, and I'll literally post an application, fill out an application and then submit it, and when I refresh the page, the dog's gone. Like it's wild how
there's such a demand right now. It's crazy, and it's no wonder that people turn to Kijiji, right? Because
well, that's what I did. I made that horrible mistake. And that's the thing, like with COVID, everyone's at home. So everyone thinks now is the time to get a puppy. And I get it. Like, of course, that would be the best time. You're at home, you can train it, you can look after it. If it goes to the bathroom on the floor, you're there to clean it up. And that's the thing. Like, if you look on Kijiji, the prices for animals right now, not even just dogs, but animals in general, it's astronomical. It's through the roof, right? So.
Yeah, so we'll wait till COVID's over, because like I'm sure rescues too are at their limits right now, because they're obviously dealing with all the sanitary measures as well, and having to take all these dogs in and trying to figure out how to protect themselves and these dogs.
And traveling's the other issue. The Save a Dog Network and the SPCA here, they would fly dogs back and forth, right? So, well, mostly from there to here, not back and forth, but. And that's, difficult to do now. Flights are more expensive because like we can't really, there's so many more rules, there's so many things to do, and then funding. People like are out of jobs. Like, some people are fortunate enough to work from home, and some people are losing their livelihood, right? So, and then these places rely on funding heavily.
Yep.
So, so what else are you guys thinking here as far as anything else you want to chat about before we end this this episode, because clearly this is probably going to be a multiple episode podcast for this one specifically, because I know you guys have so much information that we probably haven't even unpacked yet, right?
I mean, we're still unpacking it ourselves, I think, is part of it.
Yeah.
You know, like the CRA, like them not submitting any tax returns since 2018, since they regained their charitable license, like that's just massive.
Now, do you know they haven't resubmitted those?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry. So I heard back from because I had emailed the CRA because I wanted to get some information on the charity and their status, and to try and figure out why they had lost their charitable status. And the only response back I got was, I have searched for the organization mentioned below and found no data for the tax year 2019 or 2018. This can only mean we have not received their tax return information since the organization has been registered. So basically, since they became a charity again in 2018, it doesn't appear as though they've filed any taxes. So I need to reply back and see if they have anything else from the previous 2011. I don't know if they keep their records that far back. Hopefully.
So, and then they also lost their license, right? And had to pay a $5,000 fine.
That's right. So in September 2020, they lost their license from the Ministry of Agriculture in Quebec. You have to have a license to operate a shelter. They failed to renew it, and they were fined $5,000. And so the ministry website, they only post publicly violations and cases of animal neglect going back 2 years. So that's the only one that's available online. So in the last 2 years, that's the only run-in they've had with the ministry. Who knows further beyond that? Makes you wonder.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else we've uncovered. But yeah, there's a number of court cases, which I think I linked you to. Those were kind of the two most interesting ones. But there was also a story in the Ottawa Citizen from a couple of years ago about another parvovirus dog who had complications from parvovirus, if I remember correctly, intestinal or stomach issues, something like that. And she again took them to court to cover some of the vet bills.
And it seems pretty recurring in all of these court cases that they never show up to court. And so automatically the person suing them wins the case. But like in a lot of cases, they have a hard time even receiving the funds back from the SPCA once they've won this court case. So bailiffs are sent in, like police have to go in and try to get this money from them.
That's right. But it's like the Ottawa Citizen one, like she won the court case, and so I think they had to collect $1,200 or something like that, and they refused at first. So the bailiff threatened to take away office furniture and electronics and stuff in order to compensate it, and then it was only at that point that they actually wrote a check.
All of a sudden they have the money, right?
All of a sudden,
It sounds like they probably are making enough money to be able to continue operating and pay fines like this. And it sounds like they're just somebody behind the scenes just does not know either the process and what you're supposed to do to operate a shelter, or they just don't care and they just bypass the rules, do what they want. They're like, whatever, we're making enough money here and we'll just pay the fees. Like, I wonder it's got to be one of those.
I'm really interested to get some more information from the CRA and learn about their tax filings and who's on their board of directors, because like every other reputable shelter out there publicly lists their board of directors, right? Like these guys are very much hiding. I haven't been able to find anything online, and unfortunately it's not part of the public domain that the CRA lists. So I need to respond to their email and see if they have any more information.
I believe a charity has to have a board of directors. Like if you're a designated charity, you have to have a board of directors. And there's nothing listed on their website. There's like no names affiliated with them.
Yeah. See, I don't know enough about that part of things as far as a charity goes and board of directors, but it's definitely something to look into to see, to find that answer out for sure.
And then there's all kinds of weirdness surrounding this 2018 fire too. A lot of the news articles that you read about it from the time, they weren't able to get anybody from the shelter to comment, or it was just a very terse comment of, we're doing our best to get back up and running. The whole thing just it's very sketchy.
Yeah, so nobody for the shelter, nobody was on site when it happened. It happened, I think, in the evening. And it was actually like a local driving by and was like, hey, this building's on fire. There's no fire trucks. I will call the firefighters.
Right. I haven't even been able to locate a cause of the fire.
There's no cause listed.
We haven't seen anything reported either on a cause. And yeah, like I don't think it's uncommon for shelters like this not to have somebody on site 24 hours, but you would think you would at least have some security cameras or monitoring or something, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Where their initial building, where was it in like a rural area? Like I have no idea anything about that part of it, like as far as what's in the area.
Yeah, so it's kind of halfway between the city of Gatineau and Aylmer.
Their previous place?
Their previous place was not far from where they are right now. I would qualify it as rural, although like I would say like the suburbs of both of these cities are kind of growing together. So it's in the plateau area of the Gatineau region.
It's on a fairly busy street though, so there's lots of cars going by constantly.
So yeah, I mean, fires happen. I mean, obviously we don't want to insinuate anything that we don't have proof of, obviously. But I mean, like I said, I can't find any sort of cause. Like I've read articles, I've watched some news coverage, I've watched everything, and I can't find a single thing that even a follow-up article that says, oh, by the way, it was a faulty wiring or somebody left the stove on or something.
Yeah, same here. Like I certainly don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but the media coverage is very scarce, and like you said, no follow-up. And this building they're in right now was meant to be temporary, according to the news coverage I read.
Yeah,
and it's been 2 years, going on 3.
Yeah. The same here. That's what I was curious about, the temporary building too. And I figured since then they'd have moved. This is just a rough one. I mean, I also want to talk to some of the other people that, if they want to come on and talk about their puppy that they got. I mean, I don't think they'll have as much information as you guys. You like gumshoes here that have, unearthed a whole slew of, information on this place. So, but I still want to give them the opportunity if they want to come on and talk about their experience with the shelter. I'll gladly talk to them. Because I mean, I talked to another person today that dealt with another dog that had some anger issues, and they weren't very forthcoming with. They haven't refunded her money. She only had the dog for a week. The dog was like, it bit one of her friends. It was like attacking the cat, and they still, not sympathetic. And I understand. I can sort of see that it would be a pain in the butt having people return their animals constantly. And I could see that must be tough. That bringing the animal back, trying to rehome it. It all takes time and money, right? But at the same time, you have to expect if you're not forthcoming with the info that this dog is aggressive, you should be refunding their money. I mean, it's not like the dog didn't leave the shelter and all of a sudden develop an aggression with a 5-minute car ride. So,
and again, like if you were upfront with people, like there are folks out there who are willing to put in the time, to correct this behavior.
Absolutely.
And love this dog, right? But yeah, you have to be upfront.
And you can see that difference between their ads and other ads online. Like we've been looking at a lot of rescue dogs, and a lot of rescues are really forthcoming, being like, this dog has anxiety issues, like you need to work with this. We recommend obedience classes, which is amazing. You know what kind of dog you're getting, if it'll fit your lifestyle. And this place, usually when you look online, they're like, our dogs are great. They love everybody, and they're perfect.
Yeah. So there's no care taken for the the person adopting or the animal. Really, I mean, it's not good for the animal to be floating around from house to house because they're not, being honest about the dog's health and well-being, right?
We've talked to other rescues at this point, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the SPCA of Western Quebec. Yeah, that place." But
it's maddening though, because like the media doesn't seem to be all that interested. Like obviously it's been going on for years, and when you Google their name, there's no news stories or anything like that. There's just really that one Ottawa Citizen article. So yeah, we're optimistic that maybe I want to thank you so much for telling our story, and hopefully that'll gain some more traction, because we just want people to know.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're really hoping some of the local Ottawa news outlets will take this on as well.
Well, I would just advise people to, again, do your research and check out the reviews, make your own decisions. just do your research. That's the main thing. Do your research, right?
Absolutely. People need to do their research, but part of the problem too is just the amount of research you do need to do. Like, we kind of kick ourselves for not doing more research, but even then, if we had, I don't know if we would have uncovered all of this. Like, I wouldn't have done a deep dive in court cases to figure out like, people, do they care about animals? If you go purely off of the Google reviews, that's definitely a good way. But there are, like you said, there's lots of good ones in there. And a lot of them are people complaining about not getting calls back about dogs and missing, adoptions and stuff like that, which is, perfectly normal. It's hard to adopt a dog right now. So yeah, it's really difficult.
But if you're patient enough, it's bound to happen, and then it'll be that much more special, I think.
Yeah. We're gonna keep trying. Whatever dog we do get next, gotta get twice the love to make up for Avery. So
yeah, you'll have to get him a little like hazmat suit for the first few months or something too, right? So he's little doggy hazmat.
Exactly.
We managed to find a little bit of humor in all of this when we went to visit Avery at the hospital, which was really, really sad. But we had to like hazmat suit up with gowns and everything because it's so contagious, right? So here we are, in the middle of a global pandemic, putting on more PPE so we could go see our poor puppy.
Yeah. You gotta find the humor in anything, really. Otherwise, it's just gonna eat you alive, right? So, anyways, I think that we'll leave it at that for now. I'm sure you guys are gonna be back on because this is not over, obviously. And I thank you for doing all the work you guys are doing too. I mean, you've spent, sounds like, all of your personal time, looking into this and trying to help others too. So that's exactly how I got into this, right? I was. If you asked me like 2 years ago, in 2 years you're going to be doing a podcast about animals, or, puppies and stuff, I'd be like, what? No, I'm not. So you just kind of fall into it, and then you just get a passion for it, and you just want people to be fair, and especially running a place like this, you just expect them to be fair and honest and decent and upfront. And that's all you can expect, especially from an SPCA. So anybody at the Western SPCA or the SPCA of Western Quebec, if you hear this, please message us. We will gladly have you on, and you can gladly give your side of the story. I want to hear from them, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Seriously, thank you for everything you're doing and giving people a voice to share these stories, because it's not without like that kind of voice and backing that anything's going to happen.
Yeah, fight for the puppies.
Exactly. Yeah. We've been listening to your podcast. I think we're all caught up now. So
yeah. Oh, good.
Really interesting and really, really eye-opening. For us. We'd heard about puppy mills before, but didn't understand the breadth of the issue and just how insane it is. If there's anything we can do to help, let us know.
Oh, absolutely. You guys are like my new gumshoe team. I'm going to have you guys on as like producers of the show now, because some of the info you guys have dug up is pretty remarkable. The average bear, that's the thing. The average bear is not looking for this type of stuff because A, they don't really know where to look, and B, they just like a lot of them, once this happens, they kind of feel guilty and embarrassed that they buy a dog that ends up dying or something, or they're upset, and the guilt, and you're sad, and you just kind of want to forget about it. But I think that's everyone has their own approach, but to me, I took the opposite of that approach, right? I wanted to do more and try and help other people at the same time. And that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Exactly how we feel too. Yeah, it's really helped us kind of get through this, I think, and make it so that, something good might be able to come out of this whole situation.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we told Avery too, as squishy or whatever that is. We told Avery, the last time we saw her, your life is meaningful. We're going to make it meaningful.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, like I said, you're now a part of the team. So anything you guys have, you're always welcome to come on and talk and shoot me emails and fill me in on everything that's happening.
Yeah, we'll do. Thank you.
Do. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Take care. On the next episode of Puppy Scammers, The Questionable Part 2.
So when you get there, it's all one big room. The dogs are all in dog crates for their size. So I was giving IV fluids. I'm not a vet. I'm not a vet tech. No vet tech showed me how to do it. I knew how to do it from past experiences, but you would think they'd give a refresher of how to put the needle in and stuff like that. They just basically expect you to do it. When the puppies would get parvo, there's no quarantine, there's no extra room, there's no place to put them. So they're there with every other dog, basically. So we did that. We lost a lot of puppies. Like, since I was there 6 months, there was maybe at least 10 to 15 dogs. And most of them didn't go to the vet. So they died with us.